Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Welcome to our 6th episode.
Wow, 6 already?
Yeah. And today we're going to be talking about environments.
Hey everybody, and welcome to the Worldwide Workshop. My name is Matthew, and with me as always is Justin.
This is a masterclass for early childhood educators.
A conversation about developing your excellence.
Each week we will share our perspectives, experiences, and mistakes on our journey toward better practice.
So sit down and listen up.
Matthew, what do we mean by environments?
Well, when I talk about environments, I basically mean the entire world, the fantasy world that you set up to learn in. So it's, of course, it's the furniture arrangement, the temperature inside, the walls,
The smell.
absolutely, and stuff like that. But it's also like the feeling. How do you feel in this world? Do you feel empowered? Do you feel like you have to follow the rules? Do you feel like, a fully included participant, or do you feel like an outsider? That sort of thing. So those are some of the main, the very broad ideas about environment. Is there anything you have to add?
Well, you reminded me of an assignment that I did online with my students through NSCC, and they couldn't get out to placement. And when you said going into the space and the reminder and what it feels like, I kind of had them rearrange something in their physical space, like their living arrangement or wherever the computer was set up. And some of them rearranged.
Like in their home.
In their home,
Yeah.
yeah. And so they could rearrange like a desk drawer or a cupboard or something like that. And I was getting them to draw it 1st and make a plan and then do that.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember I'm in the room, I'm sorry if anybody's offended by that, but I remember how some people weren't allowed to change things, like they weren't allowed to change a room arrangement, and I needed to say, let it go. Whoever is trying to tell people not to rearrange a room, let it go. It is not that important.
Yeah.
And the same thing in a classroom. If somebody has an idea that they want to change something and you know that it's going to be a fail, who cares? Let them make the change. Help them make the change. Because what comes from change? Dialogue. You know what I mean? Just that little change, and as long as you're not saying the whole time, this isn't going to work and I told you so, then there's the opportunity to be like, if we do it this way, then it's very loud right next to our reading area. And is that what we want? I don't know.
So that reminds me of, I'm going to say it again, we should have some kind of paid advertisement, but at Peter Green Hall with Bobby and Annette, when they would let you try something and in their head they're like, that's not going to work. But then they would say it out loud to you, but they would let you do it anyways.
Yeah, and it was lucky because I was stubborn. I don't know if stubborn's the word, but I didn't care if they said it wouldn't work. People told me my whole life I was wrong and that it wouldn't work and I was too this and too that. But I don't care. I'm going to try it anyway. I'm going to try it my way. And I'm going to see if it works for me. And there were a couple things that they said wouldn't work that did work.
Yeah.
Because we had a different dynamic in the room, a different group of kids, a different group of teachers. And sometimes, that works.
Yeah.
And it works differently. So the basics of really an environment, I think, are physical setting, emotional setting, and then kind of what to include and what to exclude from your environment. It's not all just rearranging furniture. Sometimes it's bringing in different artifacts. I mean, stuff like this would be beautiful in an environment. And what would it say to the children that were in that space? I've never had anything like beautiful statues in my environments. I haven't had access to it. Justin just got these from his mother who was
Thanks, Mom.
cleaning up. But stuff like that really has an impact on what discussions emerge. What is considered school talk can be decided by the environment and what you include. The posters on your wall. The posters on the wall. So there's this poster that is in the school board, and it's about Indigenous people, and it's by a river and making a canoe and things like that. And I just cringe every time I see it. I'm like, no, that's not what today's Indigenous people look like. That's not their story. We don't have pictures of pilgrims. You know, we don't have pictures of people in Elizabethan dresses, you know, going back 500 years into the history of what we used to be. So why do we do that for groups that are not, you know, the white Western group? Why can we not just have pictures of actual people in their actual settings today? Anyway, it's bound to happen with anything that is done like board-wide or city-wide or Canada-wide. Anytime you try to appeal to everybody with the same image, it comes off as being insensitive, I think.
And I think one of the best things too, when you're thinking of designing your room, is focusing on who's in your classroom first, and then that can be reflected in the room. But then, like you said, if they're not represented in there, don't create a post or something like that. Bring something else.
Yeah, bring in a beautiful artifact, like a beautiful, authentic artifact. Some nice, beautiful books. You know, find somebody. There's got to be somebody in that community or in that represents that group that you can have as kind of like this person is from from Halifax. And that's what Indigenous people look like here. That's what African Nova Scotian people look like here.
Yeah.
You know, whatever you've got to do, you've got to make it real. Don't make it an ad.
Yeah.
Don't make it an ad. Anyway, speaking of ads, we'll be right back after this advertisement.
Hey, are you looking for an ad space to promote your personal business? Just send us an email at justinwestart@gmail.com for your own audio ad and a shout out in our next YouTube video. We can include logos, photos, and other contact information for your business. Thanks and enjoy the rest of the video.
And we're back. Sorry about that rant, by the way. Sometimes I feel things and I have to say them.
Feel the feels.
Feel my feels. Anyway, Justin, how do you begin thinking about your space?
Okay, I think I said just a few minutes ago about who is in your classroom, and that's kind of where I start. I got to get to know them. So when I get the children right away, I usually have like a base of what I think a classroom should look like, or a learning space.
Like a skeleton.
A skeleton, yeah. And so, things are in places and I've got things up for conversations. But then I look at how do they use that space? What are they doing in that space? Who's going to that space? And then I take all of those mental notes down, and then I start adjusting based on what they're doing there.
So you would say in designing a space, you start with kind of like not a blank canvas, but like a personally generated skeleton.
Yeah.
And that is not the environment. That is the walk in the door, let's learn about these people, and then create the environment with them.
That's right. That's kind of where I begin. And I don't know when I learned that, but...
Well, this is the first time hearing about it, so maybe you learned it today.
There you go.
So for me, the way I start thinking about a space is it's so different working again in the school board, because we go from we close and then we open again in September. Before, what I would do, I would start in a space and then just continuously grow and evolve and change. But now that I'm in the school board, I have to, and I was, somebody asked me this just before I started working at the school board. It was the team at HEX, because they were wondering, how do you start? And I'm
HEX
is Halifax Early Development School. No, Halifax Early Childhood School. I'm really good at words, by the way. Thanks, HEX. We love you. So HEX asked me, how do you start? And I was like, it has been so long since I started, because at the time I was still at the same center for 15 plus years. Right. And every space that I went into at that center already had something started. But in after schoolers, actually, when I started in after schoolers, I took everything out of the room, and then I decided if something should go into the room, not the other way around. Like, I didn't start with the whole room and then start taking things away. I took everything into the hall and then started putting things back. Yeah. But when we were talking to your Aunt Sharon in BC, shout out to Sharon, we love you. And she was trying to convert her classroom that was already she was a school teacher, grade primary to 2. I can't remember what age group specifically at the time.
Primary grade 1, I think.
Anyway, she was trying to convert because she had just recently learned about emergent curriculum and about Reggio inspired practice and knew that we had been doing it for a couple of years. So we went into her classroom, and her classroom was like, banner posters around the ceiling with like letters, and then another one of letters, and then a third one of numbers, and then posters with sight words everywhere, and just like the clutter of learning.
Sensory overload.
Sensory overload of like learning tools, right? So what we said is like, wow, this is overwhelming. So let's just start with what we can reach. Let's stand right next to something. We'll pick it up. Here it is. What do you want your classroom to say to your children? And she said she wants it to be a place where they think they can do anything. And I said, does this help you with that message? Does this say, I can do anything here? Does this say, I can do anything here, or help you with that message? And it got to the point where we started getting rid of some stuffed toys and some plastic toys. And these can be great toys.
Oh, yeah.
It's just that when you're overwhelmed, you've got to start somewhere and taking things out, like purging, getting rid of what's in the way of your message. So that was the way that we did that with her.
Do you know, she found an old frame that was like buried in when we were cleaning the room up.
Oh, yes.
And then she put it on the window of her classroom, and she wanted them to look beyond the frame.
Yeah, so she posted it on the window, hung it on the window.
Yeah.
And so the kids would look out through that frame as though it were art.
Yeah.
Was kind of like the way I took it.
And slowly they started to look, oh, that's the field. But then they started going all the way back to where the blueberry bushes, or the blackberry bushes. I got to make that point clear. And they were able to go back there and really look and see what was going on back there.
Yeah, because at first they were just like, I see the rocks.
Yeah.
I see the walkway. I see the grass. Is that what you want me to see? But then like the more they would do it, the more exercise, the more they had tried it, the more they had expanded their eye. The further they got. And what ended up happening actually is that they picked blackberries
During a fire drill.
Because they had looked at them so often. And then, they had a school policy that you can't eat food that's picked or whatever. And so she collected with them these blackberries after they all had one, by the way.
Yes.
She broke the rules. Shocking, Sharon, breaking rules.
Right.
But we love it. Rules are made to be broken. So she picked the blackberries with them, and then together with the children made blackberry jam.
After a child said that she made blackberry jam with her grandfather or grandparent or something like that.
As like a child-initiated idea.
Yeah.
And then they made it together and sent it home with the families as kind of like, instead of like the hand turkeys that you send home at Thanksgiving.
It was homemade jam.
It was homemade jam instead. And just kind of like this idea that you could go home and eat jam with your family that you produced, right? Like, what a special moment.
And to go back to the environment, it's setting that up, that culture of who those children are, where they're at, and the room evolves and grows and reshapes based on that experience or the experiences.
Yeah, like setting up opportunities.
Yeah.
But on another note, going back to the school, when I go back to school in September, the way I start setting up the room is the way that it was set up in June. So I start from where I was with my previous group. I have all new kids and all new staff so far every year. So I don't really have anywhere to start with, like, who's doing what. And I don't really get a lot of time right away, extra time in the afternoons to rearrange the furniture. So I start with where I was. I keep a couple pieces of documentation up just as a kind of like a, hey, children's ideas are valid here. They're validated. Maybe your ideas will go up on the wall as well.
Yeah.
And then we work in the space together for the first little while. But it usually isn't until a month or so in that I really take a look at the way that we're using the space and then make that change. So I wait a little bit, and I don't know which one's better, starting with a skeleton and developing with the children, or having kind of like a little box kit from last year and then waiting until you've got some ideas and then changing them. It's really up to you and your team what will work best for you.
Yeah.
And if at all possible, I mean, if you can, involve your kids. Get them to help you move things. I had a group that decided something about the way that I had designed the kitchen dress-up area. It was like a bunch of kitchen furniture, like microwave and a sink and all this stuff. And it was a boy who never talked to me. He had created a very strong bond with my coworker at the time, Tia. Shout out to Tia. And he didn't speak English very much, so our bond was just not yet built. I mean, he'd only been in for a week or so at this point. And he moved something in the kitchen because he's like, oh, no, this doesn't, I'm just going to move it like this. And I was like, oh. So I went over with him while he moved it, and I was just like this, gesturing, because I didn't really know if he understood what I was saying, but like participating and checking in with him about how to do it. And he was very excited. He redesigned the entire kitchen space and then would not work anywhere else for 2 weeks afterwards, because he's like, this is the space that I designed. Yeah. This is my kitchen. Y'all can come in if you want, but let me know. I'll tell you the rules.
That's right.
So it's really great for kind of like ownership of the space as well, if you can involve the kids in what to do.
And just really quickly, I remember doing something like that where I just had made it an activity where I laminated the classroom layout, but all the little bits of them, they got to move them like magnets or something like that, and then they got to like manipulate that, and then I translated that where they actually could move the large furniture just in the same way.
I sometimes do that for students who are like, how do I move things around? I'm like, well, I've got a layout here and you could just move these little things around. Student teachers, I mean.
So yeah, back to student teachers too.
Before we get on to student teachers, let's stop for a short break.
Hey, are you looking to do home improvements?
Yeah, but anyone I call doesn't show up, or the work they do just isn't great.
Well, you should try Perfect Tile and Flooring. Just ask for Moon. He can install bathrooms, kitchens, and a whole lot more.
Really? Have you seen his work, though?
My bathroom felt like an indoor outhouse. Cracked tiles, stained tub, and holes to the outside world. Moon, from Perfect Tile and Flooring, came in and worked his magic. Our disaster bathroom was transformed into a relaxing oasis.
Really? He sounds great. How can I get a hold of him?
You can go to his Facebook page at Perfect Tile and Flooring. He is fully insured and accredited by the Better Business Bureau.
Wow, thanks, Justin.
And we're back. Sorry I rudely interrupted you, Justin. What were you about to say?
I was going to say that during the time when students are learning about all of these concepts in early childhood, one of the things that is a huge one for me is design. Mm-hmm. And they have to draw like floor plans, pretty much every placement and in some assignments. So the experience for them to do that and then see it live is a great applicable activity. Yeah.
Yeah, so that makes me think of environment as the third teacher. So a lot of people say this. A lot of people know what it means, but don't really know how to explain it. So
you going to?
I'm going to explain it my way, and you can decide if you like it or not, or tell me I'm wrong. You can tell me I'm wrong. I don't mind. I like being wrong.
Comment below.
Comment below if I'm wrong. So for me, the environment as the third teacher is the way that the environment does things, frees you up. It does things for you so that you don't have to do them. So making, putting books in certain areas so that children can see books connected, like science books in the science area, so that that works.
Yeah.
But also like even just like the size of space. Smaller spaces tell us to do smaller things with our bodies and our voices. So if we've got like a little tiny roof thing overhead and some shelves on either side and like a basket type floor, we're going to be all cuddly and cozy and kitties in there and quiet. And that's something that you would want in a certain area of your room, right? And you wouldn't put that right back next to the big wide open carpet with a veranda on it built for big block jumping, huge dramatic play. Like you wouldn't put those things next to each other because they would create conflict within the groups. The quiet kids would want the loud kids to be quieter, the loud kids would want the quiet kids to get out of their way, or they'd want to be throwing things and they'd be throwing them at the kiddies.
And then you yourself would be frustrated.
And then you would be frustrated. You have to go over there and say, listen, here's the line. Yeah. You don't need to do that. Let the environment tell them where the line is. Let the environment tell them how to interact in this space. Let the environment tell them what we can discuss in the classroom, what ideas are going to be valid in this classroom. Yeah. Let the documentation on the wall tell them that you're listening to their ideas, that you saw them, you saw their work, you saw it was important. You put that up in the environment. They see that their ideas are validated. You don't have to tell them. You don't have to go back every time and say, good work.
Yeah.
I like your work. Good job.
Just to interject, the way that you just said that reminded just of the story that you said about that little boy moving the furniture. You set that up so that he was able to manipulate. You came over and said, hey, let's do that. And that kind of had that mentorship, reciprocal learning kind of thing.
Okay.
I'm trying to connect other videos.
I guess so. What I got from that, actually, to connect it back to what I was saying, is that this child who was uncomfortable when my coworker was on her break, for instance, or not available to him, now all of a sudden he had a space that he was safe, empowered, and strong. For the, you know what I mean? He didn't need to look for Tia if it was just me in the room. He was like, oh no, first of all, Matthew worked with me on this, so I know I'm good. But second of all, this space is mine. I can be fun. I can be free here. Yeah. I can have fun. My ideas are useful here. And that's what the environment as the third teacher does. The environment lets him know that that's his space. So that's kind of what I mean by the environment as the third teacher. Anything that you could add?
Well, you just talked about children, but that goes for student teachers or educators. Sometimes they'll go in and a room is already designed, but then you feel like, oh, this doesn't feel good. I remember being in a position where it wasn't my classroom, but I would just do what that little boy did and just move something a little bit. And that felt good, just moving it a little bit or bringing something in or whatever. And I just did it. And I was making myself feel good.
Well, you know what? That's another part of environment. If things are moving, if they do go to different places based on the way that children are playing, that's another way that the environment is the third teacher, because the environment is responding to them. You know what I mean? Yeah. It isn't set in stone. It is a place where they can have agency. You know, they can change things. And that you really want your environment to say that to them, because if they have agency with the layout of the room, they have agency with their ideas, with their questions, with their arguments. I mean, we want kids to argue. Yeah. We want them to say the incorrect thing. You know, I want them to tell me that a seed is magical and a fairy comes along and flicks dust on it and that's how it grows into a plant. I love that idea. I love theories like that because it gives you something that you can be like, oh, interesting. And where do these where do these fairies live? You know, and what's in their dust? And, you know, you really get into the way that their mind works and stuff like that.
And you can start responding by bringing those elements into the classroom.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. Adding their ideas into the classroom. Again, the environment changes because of their ideas or because of their actions. Yeah, I find that really important. Just in setting up that culture of the classroom, which is another aspect of the environment. That culture of, you know, we all are participants here. We all contribute to the ideas of this space. I'm not the boss of the room, even though kind of we are, because we are in charge of safety. We are the people who buy the snacks. We are the ultimate kind of no if it's a no. Do you know what I mean? We are that person. But at the same time, that doesn't mean that the daily runnings, the daily goings on, whatever's going on, it doesn't mean that is completely decided by the teacher. Right. Every day in pre-primary, when we start every morning, we line up by the wall. I decide we line up by the wall. At 8:30, I decide that it's at 8:30. But at that time at the wall, that's the time for ideas. Hey, does anybody have an idea for something to do today? Right. Has anybody got a place they want to go? Something they want to try to do inside? Is anybody feeling like they don't want to go on a walk today because they didn't wear the right coat, or because they didn't wear the right shoes,
or just not feeling
or because they are not feeling it? Their mom left too quick, or their dad left too quick, or they didn't get good sleep last night. You know what I mean? This is the place to communicate what's going to happen throughout the day. And yeah, it empowers them. It creates this culture of we're all involved in this together.
Yeah.
I don't create and teach to you. We discuss and we learn from that discussion together. We engage in dialogue. Yeah, so that's what I'm thinking about that. Which brings me to outside environments. And since we're kind of running out of time, we're going to do that in a separate video. So stay tuned for our next video on outdoor environments.
Thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching.
Hey, Editor Mike here. One last thing. Make sure to go over to my channel, top link in the description, and subscribe. Also subscribe to the Worldwide Workshop for more weekly videos. Both are free and help out a lot. Thanks, and see you guys in the next video. Peace.